Welcome, one and all. It's time for another red hot episode of The Andy and Rem Show. Episode 203, I think. 203? That's a insane amount of episodes, isn't it, Mr. Remington?
Yeah, I reckon 203. Actually, it's not that much for today's standards because people just seem to whack out videos.
Well,
Like
it's
yeah.
quality. Quality over quantity, then. And with that, let's pull back the veil of this beautiful thumbnail with arguably the miniature of the year, the Bretonian Lord, with his little sidekick. And he's still there, but now you can see us as well. Good evening.
Hello, Andy. He looks a bit like you, Andy. I reckon if you had blonde hair.
I don't know if my cheekbones are quite that pronounced.
It's not far off. Can you do something with your eyebrows?
Let's try and recreate it.
There you go. I could be the little boy, I suppose,
Go on
holding the
then,
cup.
mimic the little boy's face. You know what he looks like? He looks a bit like, have you seen the film Jumanji? Where the little boy starts turning into some kind of rat creature.
Nah.
Oh. Well, anyway. Moving on. We've got a packed house in the audience tonight, as always. So let's see who's in there. We've got Mickey Genver, old school Andy and Rem audience member. We've got Vidacast. And we have got plenty of others who just aren't commenting yet. We've got Stu in there as well. Legendary community member.
It's the old world crew back together again for part 2.
Now, old world fever has gripped the globe, certainly. And the only cure I found was standing in the queue outside launch day at Warhammer World 2 hours before the doors opened.
Wow, that is commitment, Andy. I mean, there's no other online program that's showing. Did you get some footage? Tell me you got a picture or two.
There are some pictures in the queue that you can see floating around on Twitter. I'm not going to be putting pictures of the inside of Warhammer World on this video because I want to keep this monetized, you know.
Were you wearing your orange outfit?
I was wearing an orange hat while in the queue, so I would have been recognisable for that reason. But a couple of reasons I decided to go super early. One, I heard that they were carrying some limited online-only items in there. As you know, when something's put as online-only on the website, that means no retailers are ever going to get their hands on it, and you have to be very lucky to snag that before it just disappears. Maybe forever, maybe it'll come back if you're lucky. But some of those things that were sold out in the initial pre-order window would be available there, but only in small quantities. There would also be other items that are going to get snagged immediately as well. We don't know how many army boxes there were going to be. We don't know if there was 10 waiting in the Warhammer World. We don't know if there were 10,000 waiting there. So you don't want to turn up midway through the afternoon and find someone wheelbarrowing out just an entire selection of goods and leave nothing behind, and you're just left with the scraps. So we need to get there bright and early.
So Andy, the doors opened. You were like way ahead of the game, front of the queue.
Well, not quite front of the queue. I thought if we turn up, because it was me, it was Annie, and it was Mr. Rob, aka the Honest Wargamer, aka the Square-based show host.
Yeah, he's probably public enemy number 1 at Games Workshop, isn't he?
I don't quite know about public enemy number 1, but he's also public face of Square-based content at the moment, the amount he's firing out. I assume you've been following that channel.
That could have been us if we'd have been quicker to the game, but his show is really, really good. That's the difference, I suppose.
Problem is, I don't know if we'd be able to do that kind of deep dive into the rules without actually playing it.
I mean, that guy lives and breathes it. You know, we live and breathe a lot of other things as well as Warhammer. So I don't know, maybe you get more of a balance here, but that guy's a machine.
We live and breathe the fumes of enjoyment that come off our audience through the internet. So we were all queuing up. We were about 20th in the line outside the door, and that's what you get for turning up 2 hours before opening. If we'd got there an hour later, we would have been like outside the car park. The queue looped all the way around and then out almost to the Sigmar statue outside at one point. And they started letting people in 10 at a time. The idea was that people would be able to pick up what they wanted from the shelves and then go and queue for the till. and then they let the
Yeah.
next 10 people in, just so it's not 100 people all like fighting over each other to grab the stuff off the shelf that they want.
So you walked in, you went up the stairs, and then you go into the actual shop, or the
Yes.
first room is the shop, and that's where they had the the new releases there
Straight to the
waiting.
shop. So I went straight for the army boxes, not knowing how many there would be. Grabbed the Bretonian box. And then I made my way over to the other section. By the time I got to this other shelf, all the magic cards were gone immediately, despite me being 24th person in.
Do you think people took more than one pack?
I think they probably allowed people to take 2, I would think. But also, there would have probably been another 10 people that came in after me that got to the magic cards first, because they just went straight for that shelf, whereas I went to the army boxes. But
So you allowed 2 things, so you could
possibly
keep one and sell the other on eBay.
I didn't see anyone specifically buying 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did allow you 2. So I did then crouch down to the ground level to go through some of these boxes, which are they're not proper retail packaging, because these are the online only items that were available on the day. So this one down here is the one that you asked me to pick up for you, which is the Battle Pilgrims.
That's great. So it's actually got a picture on the box. I thought they'd just give you like one of them white boxes.
Well, I think this is basically the same thing, except it's got a bit of a design on it. So the temporary boxes for the products they're not going to carry in retail, and you may only be able to get them every now and then on a made-to-order basis, probably. And then I also got myself some Grail Knights as well, and the Grail Knight Command, because you only really need 6 knights for a unit. So there's a unit of Grail Knights there.
Did they have the mounted yeoman?
They did have some of them, but I didn't get any.
No.
But someone did actually ask me to pass them the mounted yeoman from my position on the ground, going through the shelves looking for the right ones.
On the ground.
So yeah, because I had to crouch down, because you can't really see what the text says
without
getting right down there, because it doesn't have a picture on it.
People would just be treading all over you as well, weren't they? I mean, it's like the chat's going crazy. Colonel Billington said this sounds like the queue was similar to the one at RemCon.
RemCon 2017, yes, that legendary queue.
And then Mickey Genver, the legend, says she says you could arrive at Andy Palooza, which is the rival, the rival get together to RemCon. You could arrive at Andy Palooza 2 hours late and still be the first one in the queue.
That's only because Andy Palooza is so fashionable that nobody would turn up on time. Everyone just waltzes in fashionably late.
Oh, I see.
So that's the only reason for that.
See.
Now, what I also got, in addition to these boxes, I already mentioned that I got the Bretonian box, so I'll show you the box. Let's see if this blur feature wants to blur it out. There you go, look at that.
Why have you got the blur feature on? Come on, Andy, be open.
Because I need to find a different program to not reverse my webcam. So if people can see the text that's written on all my trophies properly without it being backwards.
So is it as heavy as people say, this box?
It's very heavy, and someone was in the queue with the Bretonian box and the Tomb King's box. But by the time I'd paid, because I had to wait for about 20 minutes in the queue just to pay. By the time I'd got out the queue, paid, got my stuff in the bag, the queue for the till was going all the way, snaking all the way around Warhammer World. Like it was almost looping back on itself. There were people that were waiting literally an hour or 2 in the queue just to pay. They only had 2 tills going.
Why did they should have just had some floating PDQ machines, right?
I don't think they anticipated this level of demand and this level of people turning up, even though they specifically hyped it up during the week.
So you bought the stuff you wanted, and
Yes.
then what do you do at this? Is it an open day, or what was it?
Well, before I get onto that, so the other things they did have all the dice there. They also did not last long, but I've already pre-ordered some dice, so I didn't get those. My pre-orders, by the way, which are being delivered to Warhammer World, weren't ready yet. I'll have to pick them up at some time this week. By the way, I believe that's your dog in the background. Would you like to explain to the audience what's going on, that you're not torturing an animal there?
He's only been out twice today, so for 2 hours each time, and he's driving me insane. Let's go on, he knows I'm talking about him.
Now, you did invest in a large, energetic dog, did you not?
What a mug. Yes, I did.
And now you're facing the consequences of your own actions. Would that be fair?
Everyone else's dogs seem to be just part of the furniture. They just sit there quietly. But in real life, a dog just is relentless. They don't leave you alone. It's like, you know, gonna do. They just want entertainment the whole time. I have to really tire him out to get a bit of peace. So yeah, they did let me have a dog, unfortunately. So no kids, but I've got a dog instead.
Well, so back to the launch day. So when I went back to the shelves later, they had actually replenished all the shelves, which had been emptied of all the desirable things, like the mounted yeoman and the dice and all the good stuff. And the only things they had left were the items that are going to be available long term. So like the Pegasus Knights that have got the full retail packaging that are going to be available. And then they'd filled out all the other shelves with movement trays and bases and stuff because everything had just been emptied. No dice
So
left, no cards of any kind were left.
so if you'd have got there at say midday, you'd just been able to buy movement trays.
You would have been able to get an army box because they did bring loads more of those out. So they didn't actually run out by the time I left.
And those were the things that were everyone wanted.
Yes, so they did have plenty of army boxes. Not that people around the world have got plenty of them, but at Warhammer World they just happened to have enough of those specifically. They must have had a lot in the back because they kept replenishing the shelves. They were just going like hotcakes. And the other stuff they had going on, they had some stuff I didn't really pay much attention to. Like you could pay £45 for a ticket to go and build something out of sprues.
What build what?
Whatever you want.
So a
They
peasant.
they lay out a load of sprues with bits of terrain and bits of miniatures on it, and you just clip out whatever bits you want and build something, and then bring it to the front, and then they pick which one's the best at the end.
But do you get to keep it?
I have no idea. I would assume so for that price.
Can you like build a massive like Forge World?
They only
You know,
had they didn't have any Forge World stuff, but they had sprues.
were they like Sigmarines
Yeah,
or
they
anything?
had bits of Age of Sigmar terrain, miniatures, all kinds of stuff. So you could build little dioramas.
That's interesting.
But I didn't think £45 was a good price for that.
No.
But apparently it sold out in 7 minutes.
Wow. I
So
mean, one thing I've been thinking about, Andy, is that I always get. I mean, maybe like you guys in the chat or you guys watching this later on, you get bedazzled with the new stuff, and then you buy this book and you buy some cards and you buy this, and then the book goes out of date, and then the cards get changed around or the rules get changed around, and you feel like a proper mug. I mean, I got you to get the Battle Pilgrims for me because I know that's like a highly sought after set of miniatures, and it's got real value down the line, and they're really good miniatures, and I've got the Grail Relic anyway, so it'd be kind of cool. So, do you think everyone's on that wavelength? And
I think
oh,
people do get swept up into buying the cards. I get swept up with dice, but obviously dice can't really become obsolete unless they're special weird symbol dice. But cards definitely can, and do become obsolete very fast, often before you've actually played the army. You go all in and just buy, for example, a new Age of Sigmar army and get all the War Scroll cards. By the time you actually come to play it, they might have updated the rules for half those units anyway.
yeah. Now, I think that won't be the case for the old world. I'm hoping there'll just be minor changes
They
when
may well
needed.
take a more hands-off approach with the old world if it's not their main focus. That's entirely
Yeah,
possible. But it's uncharted territory because they haven't brought a major game system like this back after such a long time this
yeah.
way. So we have no idea exactly what they're going to do.
So, Andy, I think you've been busy, not just thinking about the old world and painting and stuff, but you've been getting your old armies out. I've been doing that, and I've been basing,
We certainly have.
rebasing things.
And yeah, before I actually show you any of the things that came in the Bretonian box, in fact, I'll show you one thing first of all. The most exciting part of the whole box is orange template. Exactly the same as the old templates, but they're orange this time. So it's
Okay.
like it was made to attract me, this product. So let's have a look at the things that we've been working on, and then we'll come back to this cap and the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think this image here, so that's what I've been working on. These are the Bugman's Rangers. They're a bit further along than this now. I've actually got washes on the beards now.
Wow, very colourful, Andy.
They are. And you can see in the background, actually, in the top left there, a couple of my old dwarves that I just got out for reference.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that because I used to be used to apply the flesh wash very heavy-handedly, they did come out extremely suntanned, my old dwarves. So
Yeah.
I'm going to tone that down a bit, and I think what I'm going to do is, as a wild project, instead of just repainting the entire army, I'm going to go back and just highlight them a bit. Like my entire old dwarf army. Just like 1 or 2 highlights on clothing and skin and
Yeah.
beards.
It's very satisfying. I brought back my wood elves, rebased 95% of them, and I had Scarlock's wood elf archers, and I just redid them a little bit, and it was really satisfying to do that. It was really easy because I think I'm a better painter now than I used to be, and I've got this magnifying paint light as well, so I could get all the details in now, which it was difficult before. So yeah, they're looking really nice.
Yeah,
Um,
these models for me might actually be the most stark contrast of my painting ability, because those dwarves, some of them were painted in like the year 2000.
well, they are looking very 90s, GW Citadel 90s.
Yes,
Uh,
I'm mimicking the color scheme that I did back then.
yeah,
I'm just going to paint this unit better because I'm just better at painting now.
yeah,
And then I'm going to just
very
bring up
nice.
the old ones a little bit, just a couple of highlights, just to make them look a little bit juicier.
Now,
Now,
while you're at Warhammer World, I sent you about 100 picture messages, didn't I?
you did.
Uh, it took me about an hour to find all my old pictures of all my old 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle armies, and then Andy messaged me half an hour before the show saying, "Oh, could you just filter it down to 10 and send me them on Discord?" Not knowing that I'd just spent 2 hours finding these old photos. So
Well, you could post all of them on the Discord server for the Andy and Rem show, linked in the description. Then people would be able to look in all their glory.
yeah, it's long. It's long. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll see what I
Now,
can do.
we'll go through these units one by one and
Yeah.
tell us if you still own any of them as well.
I was very, very fond of this army. This is my Beastman army, 8th edition. My favourite unit in the whole army was the Ungors. They're actually incredible models, so full of details and characters. They're like little grumpy old men with hooves, hoofs. Yeah, so these are Ungor Raiders. I'm sure you'll agree. These are brilliant models. Do I still have this army? No, I sold this army like a proper mug.
So does that mean you no
Um,
longer have this pig either?
no, I don't have the Razor Gory, the big metal big pig. People hated that model. I kind of liked it. Um,
It's
yeah, very
definitely it's
cartoon like.
definitely an acquired taste, I would say, the Razor Gore, in the same way as the old Fellbats.
No, this is way better than the Fellbats. Come on, Andy. It looks like if you remember Slain, the comic, it looks like he's having a warp spasm.
What about this
Uh,
unit here? This looks like Bestigor to me.
Bestigors, yeah, you know, they were all right. They were not as characterful as the Ungors, but yeah, I managed to paint a big unit of those. I only actually got to play this. No, I got to play this army maybe 4 or 5 times, and they were really enjoyable to play with.
And then the world blew up.
Yeah, it's basically this army for me was just push forward.
The
I never,
Minotaurs here.
yeah, I never liked the GW Minotaurs, but I had these Minotaurs from Cybor Miniatures, I think, and these are just beautiful models.
You know, I believe it's actually pronounced Skibor.
Skibor,
I
okay,
think so.
Skibor. I think it's Polish, isn't it? It's a Polish
Yes.
company. But yeah, brilliant models.
Now, I do like the old metal GW Minotaurs. I'm not so keen on the more recent plastic ones, for the same reason I'm not that keen on the recent plastic GW Ogres. I think they're too compartmented, too compartmentalized in their musculature. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, but they're brilliant for like adding character to, adding bits and doing kit bashes with. You know, Is that it? Is there any more? I'm
There's
sure I had
plenty
loads
more.
more of these.
We've got the
Yeah.
Jabber, the Jibber Jabber Slithe.
I love this model. This is a Finecast version I got. So yeah, I didn't know how to paint this, so I just kind of went with the GW color scheme. It worked out pretty well. But the tongue looks so silly now, doesn't it? Big thing sticking out, catching some fly.
Got
Uh,
some Dark Elves by the looks of it here.
yeah, then I did a dark elf army. Um, in each army, I had one unit of uh, each unit that you could possibly get for the army. So um, yeah, I had something, a bit of everything really.
You still
And
have
nothing,
this army.
no, I sold this one like a mug. Loads of metal in this army as well. Are you going to see the squid gobber? The Goblobber or the Squid Gobbler? Maybe, Mickey. Maybe if Andy saved the picture, that was Malice Darkblade miniature there. You can see holding the head up and sitting on a cold one. I especially liked the Black Guard I painted. I was very happy with that color scheme. Kind of sounded like a royal green and an imperial purple sort of color.
Now, you did kind of continue this theme into your Age of Sigmar elves, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I've got a witch elf army now,
Yes.
for Age of Sigmar. So what happened was a lot of these models kind of became redundant, and you know, I didn't really know what to do with these, and where I was living became, I moved back home for a couple of years after Chateau de Remington got flooded with sewage. Ended up going back home to my mum's for a year or two to save some money. So that process meant me selling a load of armies and going from a big flat into one room. So I ended up going on a crazy. I think this is just before the lockdown, and during the lockdown, I just was painting and selling miniatures. Out with the old, in with the new was the philosophy at the time, and now the philosophy is in with the old.
It sure is in with the old world, and you got a Manticore here that's got some old world charm about it.
Yeah, the beast handlers for the Dark Elf Hydra are amazing models. I thought it wouldn't it be cool if I just put one of those on the Manticore. The Manticore originally came with some Chaos Lord on it, but you know, Stu Gibson says Chateau Rem was a lovely flat. Yeah, it was. Stu, yeah, it was great times there, man. Great times, but
Just a shame it was below ground level and
yeah, I
prone to
got off.
sewage.
The landlord wanted me to buy it. It had underfloor heating and it was beautiful. Um, but it was just a bit out of my league at the time. You know, I was off touring a lot and living the high life back then. And yeah, so they're my executioners at the bottom. Um, they are the kind of, I want to say, seventh edition ones, sixth edition ones. Great models.
And the final image here.
Yes, so that was a regiment of renown at the top there. The Manflayers, Mengel Manhides Manflayers, is it? Uh, yeah, I mean, looking at it now, all these models would benefit from having bigger bases. So that is one change I think I embrace. These are all 20 millimeter bases, old school style, but now they're 25. So you can see the models a lot clearer. In
I
the middle, you've got the Corsairs.
On the base size thing, while at
Yeah,
Warhammer World, seeing the armies laid out, actually the skeletons and Tonian peasants and all that stuff on 25 mil, it just looks really good. But the models were always too big for those tiny bases you had to cram them on. At the time, it just felt normal having to struggle to fit the unit together. But it just looks good now, and I'm a fan of the change.
yeah. One thing that kind of made my armies come together a lot quicker was having a theme for the bases. Um, that definitely helped me. I went through a phase of about 5 or 6 years of buying random models and not being able to complete any armies. And then I just went hell for leather and focused on one army at a time and managed to pump out maybe, I don't know, half a dozen armies complete. Very, very proud of those, but I did end up selling half of them like a
Well,
mug.
what is your current old world plan?
Well, I have a fully painted, huge halfling army, which is still kind of pointless now. But
For the
I've
time
got
being.
yes, I've got a massive wood elf army. I'd love to show them pictures. Maybe I could do a video of myself. I don't know if I get time, or maybe I'll send you the photos, Andy, and we can show them off on the next show, right? So yeah, wood elves. I've got a dwarf army. Even though I sold a Marauder Miniatures metal dwarf army, I've still got a plastic one. So that's sort of half finished, I'd say. So halfling, wood elf, dwarves, and I've got an empire army. Even though a lot of them have round bases, I've got these base converters which have worked out really well. So these ones here, I bought a whole bunch of them.
Yes,
Movement
you won't
trays.
even need to rebase your army.
No.
What a dream. Now, speaking of the dream, did you dream that we would have an unreleased miniature sculpted in 2008 up?
No. No.
What do you think of this guy then? Because we've joked about the face, seen
I
all
like
the
him.
hilarious memes. I think it's pretty cool. I think if this had come out at the time, people would be looking back fondly at it now and have nostalgia attached to it. I think the fact that it's clearly not designed in the way the modern GW miniatures are designed, and it's not been seen before, so it doesn't have nostalgia on its side. I think that's the reason people think it's kind of
No.
funny looking.
It does fit in to the old models though. People have been complaining about the hands being too big. I'm not bothered about that. I
That was
think
just
it looks
standard for the time, though.
Yeah, the story I heard was that the sculpture was did these sculpts as a sort of a job interview for Games Workshop, and so it got his foot through the door, and then they ended up using some chaos model he did for the Warhammer Open Day. So I don't think he ever expected that this would get released, but
Well, there you
there you
go.
are. I think it will do well. I think people will buy that.
I think they will.
That's beautiful. The shield is lovely. Yeah.
And then... Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit of what else was at the launch event then. So other than just building stuff out of sprue, there were 4 or 5 demo tables. Each one of them had different units on it from the new range and the new starter boxes. Tomb Kings against Bretonnians, and I signed up on one of those. And I ended up playing against 2 small children. And they had a parent with them as well. And I was using the Bretonnians, so I had the Pegasus Knights and the Pegasus Lord. And
Yes.
they had some skeleton archers and the big new bone dragon. And I did get destroyed horribly. But it was just nice to have a little taster of the mechanics in action. And it is very similar to the familiar rule sets, with just a few tweaks, particularly in combat resolution and the after combat actions.
Yeah.
Tweaked a little bit, so you have you kind of, you lose past the leadership a little bit, you can like fall back a bit, that kind of thing, rather than just either you stay still and fight or retreat and get chased. There are more things that can happen now, which is quite interesting.
Isn't that like in Kings of War where you get pushed back?
No.
Okay. All right, just checking. So, did you let this kid beat you then?
Well, it wasn't really a game of strategy. It was more like, let's push our units forward and just fight each other and roll the dice and get a feel for the mechanics.
You never let me beat you.
Those are games of skill, tactical mastery, and battle of wits. Not a demo game. I mean, yes.
Well, it's all very exciting. So we both ordered. No, you've got the rule book now, haven't you?
I now
Because
have
it's
the
in
rule book
box.
when I dig to the bottom of this box underneath all the Bretonnian sprues in there.
But Andy, didn't you order it online as well, the rule book?
Yes.
So is
No,
that
I
one
no,
for
didn't
me?
order the rule book online. I ordered the book that has the rules for the good guy armies.
Oh yes, I got that as well.
Yeah, so I've
Yes.
ordered that and some dice, except they're not.
Okay.
The pre-orders are not there yet. Even though, as I was queuing up, both those items were just on the shelf, so I could have just grabbed them and bought them on the day.
Well, I've been hearing also that in Warhammer Fantasy, in the old world, sorry, there's a lot. You don't need so many dice. Because in Age of Sigmar, you end up having like 20, 30 dice on some rolls, don't you?
That is true, actually. So one thing that I saw is that I think the Bretonian Pegasus Knights, they only had like 1 or 2 attacks each,
Yes.
which is wild. But then the wounds characteristic of all the units is lower as well. So you'll have a big
Yes.
monster hero that's only got maybe 5 or 8 wounds, like it used to be in Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, well, a hero, a general might only have 3 wounds.
Yeah, you don't have vast monsters with 40 wounds in this game.
No.
It just doesn't work that way. So lower amount of dice to be rolled, lower number of wounds on things, and in combat you're only fighting with the front rank, and then anyone that's not in base contact I think can only add 1 attack possibly. Like, you know how it used to be supporting attacks from the back rank? I think you
Yes.
now have supporting attacks from the models on the front rank that aren't in base contact, and then
Yes.
when you die
They only get 1 attack,
you
don't they?
don't step
Maximum.
in to fill the gap either when the model
Yes.
dies. So
So if I went first in the combat and managed to kill your front row, then you wouldn't get to fight back.
that is correct.
Wow.
It's worked that way in many editions of Warhammer. It was only in the more recent editions that you could actually fight back if your front rank was wiped out.
Right, now, what's to stop? Especially this is for Bretonian players. What they used to do, they'd have the lance formation charge, which looks like an arrowhead, and they'd put like a really meaty character on the front, and then 2 more characters behind him, and then sort of the normal knights behind him. So it was like almost it's impossible to kill them because every time they took wounds, it'd come off the. You know what I mean? I don't know what they call
I
that.
don't
Kind
know
of.
how that works now. I haven't looked at it in any depth rules for the Bretonian lance formation, but I don't know whether
Yeah,
you'd have to direct the attacks onto the one character that was at the front. I don't know if you can put a character at the
yeah.
front. Haven't looked into any of that yet, so that would be
Right.
wild speculation at this point. But they did.
I got
You could do similar things with the vampire counts. You could have an entire front rank that was ethereal, and then
Yeah.
everyone behind them was a skeleton, and then you charge into a unit that doesn't have any magical attacks.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's going to be stuff like that going on, isn't there? There always is. People always find a way to be annoying. Um,
Yes. Any
you know,
rule
I,
set is going to have those issues. And if it's a living rule set that's updated constantly and you choose to, you can, when you see that something's being abused, you can then make a change to fix it. And then
yeah.
people move on to something else and then you fix that. So it's like whack-a-mole. There's always something that's going to be abused.
Now, Andy, new players coming in. I mean, back in the old days, a new player coming into sort of 7th, 8th edition, they'd probably have to pay maybe up to £1,000 to build an army, let alone paint it, base it, get the rules, get all the paraphernalia, scenery, all that stuff. Do you think there's a huge barrier to entry with this, the old world?
Okay,
Are
so
people underestimating how long it takes to paint an army from scratch?
the army construction rules, which I also need to look at in more detail. If you were playing, for example, vampire counts back in the day, you had to spend a vast amount of your points on units that you needed many, many of to make up the points that you had to spend on core units.
Yes,
So you
yes,
needed a lot of skeletons,
yes,
zombies, and ghouls, and maybe what else would have been in core? Dire wolves, maybe?
yes.
Those kind of crummy, really cheap
Zombies.
units, you needed tons of them. So it's a high barrier to entry to paint that many zombies, even if you found a way to get them cheaply. So it was quite high. The army boxes now, even though they're expensive, the Bretonian one £155, the Tomb King's 175, I think. Looking at the contents compared to how much they're selling those parts for individually, they're actually very good value.
Probably saving about £100, aren't
You
you?
do get the £50 rulebook in there,
Yeah.
as long with all the other paraphernalia, your measuring sticks and templates and dice and all that stuff, and then all the units that are sold individually at a higher price. So the starter boxes is usually the best value, even though they are expensive. So what else do you need on top of the army starter box to play? You would need the one book, which would be the Ravening Hordes or the Forces of Fantasy, depending on the side you're playing. So you've got your army rules in there. So, and maybe one or two extra units on top of that. So, for not much more than £200, you can probably put an army on the table.
Yeah.
And if we compare that to a previous edition, is that around the same kind of level? You're talking which edition?
Well,
what about 8th edition?
Well, 8th edition, I think you'd be spending 300, 350, maybe 550 for Chaos Dwarves, depending on what army, I suppose. I mean, back in the day, like 5 metal witch elves, because you couldn't buy them in a box of more than 5, a sort of blister pack or a small box. I think that used to be about £25, £5 a miniature. So if you're thinking you need 75 or 100 models on the table, it's a lot of money, isn't it? 500 quid.
If you go with the plastics, it's definitely going to be cheaper. Some of the metal units, obviously, like the Grail Knights, work out at £12 per model. So it's lucky you don't need a lot of those.
Yeah. Now, what I was trying to allude to with my original question, Andy, was that you know you you've got your sweet shop eyes on, right? And you buy this big box and you buy all the paraphernalia and everything. And then you finally take it home, you open it up, and you get these sprues, and it's like, oh man, okay, I've got to build all this stuff. And so you build all this stuff, and you think, oh, it's still not ready. I've got to paint all this. I've got to paint like 40 Bretonnian men at arms and 40 peasant bowmen. And so, okay, you think, all right, I'll get on with it. I'll paint one. And you put a load of hard work into that. And you think, I've got to do another 29 of these.
It's the old painting clan rats thing.
Yeah.
Once you,
That's what I mean. We've been through that, and we know the kind of shortcuts you can take, and batch painting, and getting a good color scheme, and not using too many paint colors so you can reduce the time.
I think what Age of
but new
Sigmar
players,
does quite well is you can run an army in Age of Sigmar that only has 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 models in it. They might be big, but that's still going to be quicker and less madness-inducing than painting 300 clan rats, which is often what you needed in old world Skaven armies.
Yeah. Well, unit fillers, that's going to come back, isn't it?
Yes, which is something that GW have actually endorsed as well.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to see. Didn't expect to see that. So I can see unit fillers being a big deal if people want to have bigger units of some of the more time-consuming paint jobs.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey says she loves horde armies. Well, yeah, I like horde armies too, but do you like painting 40 to 60 night goblins?
Do you know what?
The answer is going to be no.
You know what made me gravitate towards the Bretonnians? It was the fact that I already have a dwarf army.
Well, it wasn't 2-up armor saves then.
No. I don't know if they have a lot of 2-up armor saves, actually.
Sure they can get them.
I think armor and reductions to armor definitely aren't as wild as they are, or maybe as they were. But the fact that I've already got dwarves, so I've already got a fully painted army. Even if I didn't bother touching any of them up, all I need is some movement trays for them to sit on right distance apart on their small bases. That's it. I can just start playing immediately, and then in the background I can slowly work on my Bretonnians, doing each knight its own individual colour scheme, which is what I'm planning. I think that looks way cooler. And then the general, whatever his colour scheme is, will probably be represented on all the peasant shields as well.
Yeah.
Way it should be. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Or maybe even each peasant unit maybe is from a different lord's town, so one of the other knights is maybe represented on the peasant shields.
No, so you get some transfers, do you?
I haven't had a look in there yet.
I
But
think you do, but I heard you only get them from one sort of Bretonian
yeah, I
factions.
don't know if you would get lots of different designs if they are in there. But the
Uh,
point is, though,
yeah.
the fact that I can take my time painting those, I don't have to rush to get them on the table because I've already got the dwarves.
Yes.
If I was starting off with Bretonians and actually wanted to play the game, there's no way I'd be able to do each knight with its own individual colours and heraldry. I would have to just batch paint them all the same way quick to whack them out on the table. So as a starter
Yeah.
faction, not ideal. But the Tomb
No.
Kings exist, which are probably the quickest army you could ever paint.
Yeah.
Modern skeletons, when you see them, they have all kinds of straps and belts and
Yeah.
danglage off them. The Tomb Kings,
That's
it's
right.
pretty much just bone, and then there's a weapon and maybe a
Yeah.
shield. And occasionally,
Yeah.
like a little crown or something round the head.
Yeah.
And that's it. So you're just dry brushing and then painting a weapon, and it's done. So
Bases,
if
shields.
you want to
If you
get a
get them
Tomb King's
nice.
army out on the table, even if there's hundreds of them, that is going to be incredibly fast.
Well, I think everyone who's been following the old world has heard so much about Bretonia and the models and also the Tomb Kings by now. What we got to look forward to, because there's been an announcement today, hasn't there, Andy, about
Well,
other faction releases in the old world.
so as I just scroll down this page here, yep, loads of these things were there on the day, but then immediately sold out. All the cards sold out immediately. And the first few people that came in, everyone just scrambled to grab the card, especially the magic cards. All the dice sold out. And yeah, everything
Did,
sold
did,
out pretty much.
did they have any of those standard bearer models?
The new standard bearer.
Yeah, Pegasus one.
They did. I wasn't particularly bothered about getting those because they're in retail packaging and I think they're going to be around for a while. So it was
Mhm.
mainly just the possibly limited stuff I was trying to gravitate towards.
So the Grail Knights and the Battle Pilgrims that you got me, are they metal?
Yes. I think
Oh,
the Grail Knights, I think the horses are plastic, probably.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Now, what they also had in a display case was showing off the new army, or the next army, I should say, and it
yeah.
was Orcs and Goblins. Classic Orcs and Goblins.
Yeah.
So now, these models perhaps aren't the most iconic era of Orcs and
Oh, they're the
Goblins.
worst. They're the worst, man.
Now, they're in the awkward middle ground because before this, you had
Yes.
a lot of really characterful metal Orcs and Goblins that were then
Yes.
complemented by the single pose plastics,
Yes.
which clearly GW would not want to put out anymore.
No, especially they're trying to get things out quick now, aren't they?
So what
You
they
know,
are
so
putting out are these kind of mid-level plastic kits,
oh, they suck.
which are
No,
fairly recent by our standards, but
yeah.
they're not as good as the plastic kits that came later, definitely.
No, I mean I say that from experience because I painted a unit of Boar Boys, I painted a unit of Black Orcs, I painted a big unit of Orc Boys, and the Orc Boys were the worst sculpts. I mean, out of those.
Now, what they do look
Um,
like, they look like the edition. Let's see, are all these from? Was it 5th edition that was released in 2000?
I think so.
It could well be because it had an Orc chariot in the starter box for that edition, and you got an Empire
Yeah,
cannon in there as well. So it could well be that all these Orcs are from that kind of early 2000s era. Maybe not all of
yeah.
them, but
It seems like
some of
yeah.
them are even older actually because, well, there's the starter box, and it doesn't particularly inspire me looking at that.
No,
But I'm not a
no,
huge
there's
Orc and Goblin kind of dude anyway.
no. I'm very surprised, Andy, because there's no monster in there, and there's no characters in there to try and fluff it out a bit. You know, so
Yes.
this is literally just the basics which you'd kind of need.
If it's
I mean,
cheaper than the others, then fine. Wouldn't mind that, but you would like to see a hero leading them and a monster in there, wouldn't you?
yeah. I mean, it will be cheaper because you don't get a rule book in here. I think you just get the
Yeah, I
models.
think they'll be expecting everyone to already have the rule book by the time this army comes out. But they will
Yeah,
give you your arcane journal as well, which has kind of the extra flavor rules for the orcs, and new miniatures for the heroes, which is what we're kind of going to
yeah.
expect with these factions.
See, I thought they'd go down that route for the army, but obviously,
I thought one of them would maybe come in the box. One of those two new heroes, but obviously they can sell those separately at an obscene price. and returning plastics. So let's have a look. So we've got this era of orcs.
Suck. They
So
suck.
did you really like the old, really characterful metal orcs?
Yes. Yes, I did. I like Ruglud's Armored Orcs. I like the 80s orcs, you know.
We've got these boar boys. Now you'll notice that they're not the oldest boar boys.
Yeah, they're not bad. I think
Yeah,
I
these
do.
ones are quite good.
These are good.
The old pigs were very silly looking. The very old
Yeah,
ones.
a lot smaller models as well.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were very squished, weren't they? The old boars. This
It,
is
sorry.
yeah, this is maybe a good era of boar boy that they've gone for here. These
Yeah,
ones
they
do
are
look good.
cool. They're the same boars as what you get with the Savage
Now
Orcs.
look, they've actually got the old boars here on the chariots.
Yeah, they suck. I'm sorry. I had one of these chariots, and they just look cheap.
They're
You
not
know?
very dynamic looking, but then you could say that about any of the old chariots.
Yeah, true.
And I did like the old Chaos one that had the very static horses, so I'm not going to complain too much about this, but it does seem weird releasing the old boars on the chariot and then having the much more exciting boars for the cavalry. Did they ever do an orc chariot with the other kind of boars?
No,
Well,
no.
that's going to be why then. You've got the Black Orcs, which I think this era of Black Orc, this is the only one you could really go with, because before that they were single pose, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, these carried over into Age of Sigmar, didn't they? Yeah.
Did they actually make this into a plastic kit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all plastic. Yeah.
They did have some metal ones before that, didn't they, that were kind of
Right.
similar aesthetic.
Yeah.
Or maybe it might have just been a hero that was in the same kind of armor, I'm not sure. Or maybe a command group. Then these look pretty good. That's a more modern looking boar. See, it's a mixed bag.
I don't think they do. What looks good is the standard. The standard picture is sick. You know, that red sun with that's what makes it good for me. You know.
Would you agree that it's a mixed bag of the orcs that they've chosen for this particular release then? Because they're not doing night goblins yet, but apparently they are coming. But they won't. I don't know if they'll go down the full squig route because they're fully in Age of Sigmar. So I don't know if they'd want to compete with that, or maybe they'll bring back the old metal squig hoppers for you.
For me, Andy, I like the other stuff in the Orcs and Goblins army. There's the Arachnorak spider, the Snotling pump wagon, the Doom diver, all the kind of the sort of the comedy models, if you like, in this army. But I guess you got to have rank and file. I mean, these models are superb, though.
Now, returning resin. Got a couple of orcs there. Now, were these Forge World?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, so they're coming back. So there are some night goblins they're showing off already. And also the Troll Hag was Forge World, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I never got the Troll Hag, but I did get the Orc Command Group. I never got the Goblin Command Group. But yeah, the Orc Command Group, I think I've sent you a picture of those. My paint job. I'm very proud of those.
Now, this Wyvern here is early 2000s, but they did actually show off. I don't know if it's showed in the article here.
Yeah.
But before we could carry on, there were two other monsters that they showed off at the launch day. I think I've got here. So, who would have thought the Marauder Giant would be making a comeback? This isn't the photo from the day. This is just one I grabbed off Google Images. Yeah. But this model is coming back, and it comes on a wider base now.
Yeah, brilliant.
So it actually fits on the base, and I believe it's coming back in metal as well.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
It's not all that tall, is it?
No, it looks tiny because we're spoiled with the Mega Gargants now. So it doesn't actually look that tall. But it's the kind of thing, even if I'm not doing the army, that model is so iconic that I'd be tempted to order one. They brought that back, and what kind of price would tempt me in? If it was less than £45, I'd be very tempted immediately.
It won't be.
If it was, that would tempt me to grab it instantly. I'd be right there clicking. What kind of price do you think it will be, though?
75. Colonel Billington says £100 minimum. Maybe, yeah, maybe if it's made to order. Yeah. Now, I think this giant looks great with the other Marauder miniatures. If you've got Marauder dwarves, it looks brilliant. But I don't know if aesthetically this giant fits with Orcs and Goblins.
I think once it gets above 50 towards £60. That's the point where I'd think, I don't even have an army that can use this. I'd start to hesitate.
It would definitely be minimum that, Andy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So
Yeah.
they could potentially grab me, but it depends on my current financial situation and the exact price that it comes out at. Because they definitely have the opportunity to tempt people like me that have been waiting for this guy to make a comeback, or occasionally browse eBay looking for one that's cheap enough.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
And then also this War Wyvern with a Shaman from
Now
from the early 90s. This is also coming back.
that's actually much better than I remembered.
Yeah, so I
Great.
prefer this to the more recent Wyvern with the kind of big flat face.
Yeah. Me too. Now, was this wasn't Ashag the Slaughterer, was it?
No,
This is
Azag
just
the Slaughterer was similar pose, but it had bigger wings and a slightly different Wyvern in general. It was just a bit, I think it was a bit bigger as well, Azhag.
I wonder if this is a sign of things to come. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? If they brought back the Marauder miniatures.
Yeah, so when I describe it as a mixed bag, we've got units that were released in the early to mid 2000s, plastics, and then you've got early 90s monsters coming with them.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of cool stuff in there, fleshed out with an era that wasn't released at the same time as those. So aesthetically, are they going to be a bit mismatched?
Yes.
Potentially, you kind of had that issue. If you were, for example, a dwarf player back in previous editions of Warhammer Fantasy, you had the Metal Slayers, which were all the way. They lasted through about 5 editions. Those Slayers,
Yeah.
and you were updating the plastic kits multiple times, and then the Slayers remained the same. And by the end, even though they were cool and there's a lot of nostalgia attached to them, and I like them, they did look a bit out of place next to some of the more polished kits that came later.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're going to get with the dwarves, you're going to get the dwarf, you're going to get the plastic miners, which were garbage. You're going to get the plastic warriors, which were pretty garbage. Maybe the bolt thrower, but that was fine cast, wasn't it?
Yeah, for dwarves they already have, of course, the kits that were released about a decade ago.
It'd be Battle for Skull Pass, won't it?
But they do have the Iron Breakers / Iron Drakes kit, Hammerers / Longbeards kit, which have been available this whole time.
But then you're mixing them up with the old school style ones, aren't you?
Well, that's what my army is. My dwarf army is early 90s all the way until 2014, was it? They released the last batch of them.
I don't think GW will be releasing it like that. I think they'll just go with the easy plastic ones.
So you don't think they'll release, or do they even need to release? Are the Iron Drakes? Can you just still buy those for Age of Sigmar right now?
Yeah.
So what are they going to do about that?
Don't know. I don't know. I don't think they'll release them as part of the old world.
Interesting. Yeah, it will be interesting actually, because those models are still kind of relevant in Age of Sigmar, aren't they? But they'd also be required for the old world. I can't see them sculpting new Iron Drakes specifically for the old world. That would be madness.
Well, Vadocast says dwarves blend together well. Well, fair enough. Okay.
Now, there's Rocklobber.
Love it.
Now, this era of Rocklobber isn't the one that I was raised on. The one that I had was the big hand.
Yeah.
That only had, I think it was 2 crew with it, not 4 or 5. In fact, more than that, because you've got them there. There's some on the base, some around it. This is a cool model, but when was this one released? Because this is definitely a little bit later.
Don't know.
So it's interesting to see. That's going to be one of the interesting things to keep an eye on with all these army releases. Which eras they pick and choose the miniatures from to go into it, and that they believe are going to fit together. Because you've got the Stone Trolls, which I think these are kind of timeless, actually. I think these I think they were so good at the time, and I think they still hold up very well. The Stone Trolls.
Now I've got the metal Snotling pump wagon and the plastic Snotling pump wagon. and a bunch of snotlings. They look great.
The old snotlings look like they're still remaining.
If you scroll up to that list of things, there's some exciting things there.
Joined by the following other miniature packs: Goblin bosses, Wolf Rider bosses, Bolt Thrower, Doom Diver. Now, will that be the old metal Doom Diver? The really ancient one? Did we actually see a picture of a Doom Diver?
That's so bad. The old one's so bad.
Is there a picture of it? Yeah, there's that one. Yeah, so it's that Doom Diver there, not the ancient one.
Yeah.
And it seems weird having to clarify that, but obviously they've gone for the oldest giant they could possibly find.
Hold on. And if you scroll up again, it looked like it had the Blood Bowl snotling pump wagon there.
On this photo?
Yeah, on the right.
Where?
On the right-hand side of it, the red. There.
What, over here somewhere?
Yeah. You just had it. Down a bit. There.
Interesting.
We have to zoom in.
Where?
I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about down here, where my arrow is?
Yes, where your arrow is.
I think that's a dwarf.
Oh.
It's easy to mistake a dwarf for a Blood Bowl snotling pump wagon, I'll give you that. Now, back to the list. Shamans, Big Uns, Command, Snotlings, Pump Wagon, Common Trolls, Classic Ogres. Classic Ogres. Very interesting, because there were multiple iterations of ogres before they went into plastic. So which ones is that going to be?
Marauder ogres, which would be super.
But there were multiple different kinds of ogres that came along. Some were they went up and down in size over the years a lot, didn't they, the ogres?
They did. I'm gonna have a quick look on eBay and see. Ogres.
But I'm really pleased about the trolls. I think they're really good models, and I don't think the new plastic trolls are quite as good as the old metal ones, which is rare. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll bring back the it's plastic now, isn't it? But the oh my god, my dog's driving me insane. He's just not stopped.
Yes, we've actually got the caffeinated warlord asking, does someone have a greyhound whining in the background? Because it's making their greyhounds go nuts. Remington has got himself a very energetic hound. Let's hear Remington scolding his dog.
What is the matter with you? Cut it out. Stop it.
Let's see if the dog listens to reason or it starts whining. That told the dog.
Yeah, you wait. He's going to start again in a sec. But, get a minute off.
So, yeah, we've got some very cool stuff back. It gives us good hope for the other factions as well. Some of the really cool metal miniatures are going to return. The one that I'm hoping for personally is when they bring back Chaos Warriors, that they also bring back the old classic metal Dragon Ogres. That's my wish.
Really?
Yeah, I think the metal Dragon Ogres are much cooler than the current plastic ones.
I don't know about that.
I think they are.
Those stone trolls, they look sick. I like those old school ones. Yeah, I don't know what ogres they're going to bring out. That's interesting.
We'll keep an eye on that. Is there a miniature that looks as good as these stone trolls that's as old, but still holds up as well?
Well, the thing is, they look like a unit, but the old Marauder ogres, they were kind of imperial looking, you know? They weren't, they're all very individual. I don't know how they'd look in a unit. So maybe they bring out all the different man-eaters again.
Well, the thing with ogres,
I'm not sure.
For a while, they were never supposed to be really a full army, were they? You would just kind of have one small unit of ogres in your army. They only turned them into ogre kingdoms. Which edition was that?
Well, they're ogre mercenaries, weren't they? Ogre kingdoms.
When did they first become a full army on their own?
Wasn't it 8th edition?
Could well have been.
Wow. No, maybe they had a 7th. They had a 7th edition book.
Because Chaos used to be able to take Chaos ogres, couldn't they? That was the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that'd be interesting to see. Definitely. I do think they're going to bring the Skaven back at some point, maybe in a year or two. They'll probably bring out Lizard Men. They'll bring out all the old stuff. I know people have been crying because
You think all the legacy factions will
yeah,
eventually
yeah,
worm their way back into the full?
yeah, 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 absolutely.
They could well
And
do that.
I mean, people are saying, oh, they're going to bring like Cathay. I'm not sure how that will work. I don't know. We'll have to see,
Well,
right?
they have obviously been working on Cathay and Kislev
Kislev, right?
because they did all the art. They collaborated on the Total War 3 factions, didn't they? I
Yeah,
remember watching all the videos on the design diaries on that game. So they were
yeah,
really involved there. So they're obviously planning on them being factions. So the reception that Old World's been getting as well, the massive sellouts everywhere, the queues around Nottingham
yeah.
for Warhammer World launch day, everything flying off the shelves. It wasn't quite a stampede because I think wargamers are a bit more civilized than, let's say, what should we say, football fans when cup final tickets go up for sale. In the old days,
Okay.
where you had to actually queue up to buy them in person, couldn't just get them on an app.
I'm gonna have to let the dog up in my room because he's driving me mental. And
Why
people are
don't you
complaining.
can bring the dog in and lavish it with some attention while we're talking, and then maybe it won't whine so
Do
much.
you remember when my neighbours used to argue? Remember that?
We listened into some of your neighbours' arguments, didn't
Yeah,
we?
they split up. She kicked him out.
Well, it
She kicked him
sounded
out.
like that was probably the way to go.
Right, hold on. You're gonna meet him now.
Gonna meet
Wait.
Remington's hound. And look, he's even got an instrument in the background there. So if he tries to lie and tell us that he doesn't have an instrument and can't do any songs, we'll be able to call him out on it because I can see one right there. Here he comes. Does the dog ever come in this room usually?
Not often though.
What is the dog's name?
Shogun.
Shogun. See? That's all the dog wanted, just some
See?
Remington attention.
Good boy.
That is a large hound.
He wasn't when we got him. He was only little.
That's kind of how it goes with animals. They tend to grow up a bit faster than humans.
People are saying adorable doggo in the chat. Well, you can have him if you want. Give me a break.
Now, since the old world is back, we are back with semi-regular shows. The one thing that people really wanted to come back. What do you think it was?
Oh, what? What the hell is that?
You're damn right.
Yeah, baby.
So I've prepared a What the Hell Is That, which is a small piece of an old world classic miniature which has been blown up, and people can identify what it is, which miniature it's from. And I don't have the music lined up because I still haven't fixed all that stuff on the new PC. So anyone who's in the chat, when I bring up the following image, the first one to type in the name of the miniature this is from, classic old world miniature, is the winner. And maybe Mr. Remington will serenade you with some kind of what the hell is that based lyrics while you're guessing. So let me see. Let me just make sure I don't accidentally give a spoiler. Just put technical difficulties up for a second while I find the right picture.
Well, if I can remember the lyrics, I'll do my best.
Okay, here we go. So are you ready for what the hell
Yeah.
is that?
Yes, we're ready. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigma's beard or Neferata's hat? Is it? Oh, I can't remember the rest. Something about a rat. Only Andy and Remington. Andy and Remy. Andy and Remington know.
Yeah, what were the lyrics? Sorcerer's rat. Sorceress rat?
Yes, that's a great lyric. I don't think anyone's ever said sorcerer's rat in a song before, so 17 people watching now. Can you please like the video? Because only 2 people have liked it,
I've got
and
7 likes showing up on mine, so I think
I've
yours
only
just
got
hasn't
2.
updated. But that's still criminally low considering the level of quality content we're putting out here.
Criminally, criminally low. I mean, what the hell is that, Andy?
Well,
I
we've got
don't know.
some guesses already. Gobbo Shaman, no. Spider's Fang, no. It's quite a tricky one.
Now, Raphael Maj, he usually turns up right when you're doing what the hell is that and gets it right. So I'm quite surprised he didn't get it this time. But you can have another go. Is it the shoulder plate? Is it like a shoulder plate of a Chaos Warrior?
Now, I seem to remember there were a few people who were just total whizzes at what the hell is that. I think William might be one of them.
Really? William Matthews, hello, mate. Thanks
And
for coming back.
there is a
Thank you.
guess there. Tree Man. Could it be? Could it be the Tree Man?
Which Tree Man? Oh, wow, he's right. It's Durthu the Tree Man. I do have that model, actually.
Look at that. It is that bit of the arm there. Look at that.
Yes. Wow. That is incredible. How did he do that? Did he do like a Google image search or something?
I don't know if that would be high enough resolution for that to even work.
Well, William, congratulations, and your reward is the Bretonian starter set donated by Andy.
I don't remember agreeing to that. Maybe if Remington can donate a Bretonian starter set to you, I can get on board. With his rock star lifestyle, I'm sure he can afford that.
William, what armies do you collect? Raphael, what armies do you collect? I'd love to know. Mickey, I know she has a huge Nurgle force, but please write in the chat what army you collect or have. Yeah. Mickey says Andy is so generous. Really? Actually,
that's
no,
not true. No, I am actually.
You are pretty generous.
Well, I did go and queue up 2 hours before opening time in the freezing cold to get Remington his box of Battle Pilgrims.
That's phenomenal.
And I have also offered to give Remington this spare miniature as well, which I have, which is Bugman.
That's great. I've been wanting that for yonks.
Yeah, because for some reason, I've got this bag of old classic dwarves, and there were 2 Bugman miniatures in it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I don't need 2. So yeah.
That's very kind of you, Andy.
So everyone let us know which armies you're going to be doing. And let's talk a little bit about our plans going forward for the old world then. So you've already got several armies.
Yes.
You've got some that are just ready to go immediately, still square based. You've got You've got some that you just need to put on the little adapter trays.
Yeah, if you said we're having a game tomorrow, Remington, you've got to get something together. My wood elves are ready. I'd have to do a bit of finagling, but I could get an Empire army out there, and I could get a small 1,000 point dwarf force, I think.
Yeah, we're basically ready. With just a few trays, we could get down to Warhammer World now and play some Old World. So, are you going to be doing a new Old World army project? Ooh. You've got all the others ready to go. You don't necessarily need much else for them apart from adapting the bases, perhaps. Is there a new army that's going to grab you when it's released?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe this Kislev army could be interesting.
So you're going to wait until Kislev, you think?
Yeah, I think that could be a long way off, though.
Think anything else will grab you before then? Any of the factions that already have a miniature line that you're thinking, yes, when they come back with some of those made to orders, I'm going to jump right on them?
Yeah, it's the rank and file bit that puts me off, so I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. What about you?
Well, other than Bretonians, which are going to be a long-term painting project, it's going to take a long time to get through all those, I've also been planning to keep my eyes open for Chaos Warriors. That was the first army I ever had fully painted in about 98.
Well, you won't need many models for that, surely.
No, and that's another one where I'd be fascinated to see the eras that they pluck miniatures from for the release for that. Because the Chaos Warrior plastic kit, the first one, even though I had it and at the time loved it, looking back now, they do look a bit silly and they've got very, very chunky limbs and weapons. So I could understand if they don't go back to that kit. And they've got the kit that came a little bit later with the like furry cloaks, which is more like how they appear in Total War. That era of Chaos Warrior. But then would they then mix that in with some of the old heroes and old monsters that were in metal?
Hmm. We'll have to see. I'm pretty sure now they've shown us the orcs and goblins offerings. I think the next one will be chaos
Or
because they've
dwarves?
no because they've already just done Bretonians, haven't they? Then they've done undead. Now they've done evil orcs, so that they need to have the chaos now, right? So
Well, if
one
they're
of
bringing
each
back Chaos, because they've already
allegiance.
shown that they're willing to bring back the Marauder Giant and the
Yeah,
Orc War Wyvern from 1993, I see no reason at all that they wouldn't bring back Egrim Van Horstman. They don't even have to call him that. If that character's not relevant in the timeline, they can just call it Chaos Sorcerer on Two-Headed Dragon.
maybe it'll be made to order.
That'd be fine with
Yes.
me. I'd definitely get one of those if it was, even if it was way more expensive than the Giant. I'd be tempted by one of them.
Vadoka says the prediction is dwarves next. Okay, fair play.
And
What about the wood elves? What are they going to do? They're going to bring they'll definitely bring the Glade Guard, the Glade Riders. Um,
what isn't already kind of represented in Age of Sigmar?
you can't get any of the wood elves now.
Do they have?
They've all been deleted from the web store.
They've all been removed. Everything. They don't
Yeah.
have anything even in the army lists anymore.
No.
So the old metal dryads, for example, would you prefer those or the plastic
No.
ones?
Plastic. I don't. Yeah, I might get dryads. I don't. My wood elf army is all elf, apart from the big tree man I just finished painting, tree lord. But yeah, yeah. So they'll obviously bring the Wildwood Rangers.
The
Uh,
classic Orion.
yeah, Glade Guard. Obviously the Eternal Guard. I don't know if they'll do the Orion. I just bid for one on eBay and I missed out on it because I used to have a metal Orion and painted it nice, sold it like a mug. So I'm not sure. Maybe that'd be
Warhawk
interesting.
Riders.
Yeah, that's the one I'm really looking for because they're so rare. I'd really like them to do new sculpts of those.
I don't know if they didn't do new sculpts of the Warhawk
They're not
Riders.
great. They're
They
not
could
great
they could
sculpts.
put them in resin.
It's the same sculptor that did the Wild Riders, the old Wild Riders, and the Elven Riders are pretty small and there's so much detail on them. It's so hard to paint. But the new Wild Riders are fantastic. So I'd love it if they brought out new Warhawk Riders. Yeah, for sure.
Right, let's see what the audience have been saying. So, Adakas, Dwarves and Skaven. We've got Very Silent Mouse, Skaven Empire High Elves. That's a lot. Mickey has Nurgle and Slanesh, which is a questionable combination. People who combine those two things usually have to visit a doctor rapidly. Then, what else have we got here? William, Corn and Cruel Boys for AOS, did Wood Elves and Orcs and Goblins for Fantasy. Cruel Boys actually look a little bit like the old classic Orcs, don't they? So
Yeah.
using them for the old world, I think, is something we will see. You've got the Cruel Boys and you've got the Hobgrots, which are easy to fill in as either goblins or hobgoblins in a Chaos Dwarf army. So I think we'll see Cruel Boys used. They fit the old aesthetic very well. They've even got the shields with the big face on it, with the teeth.
Yes.
So that's not a stretch. Raphael has bought Tomb Kings, but has Orcs and Goblins and also Dwarves. It seems like everyone has Dwarves, so this was a running thing at the launch day. Everyone was talking about, obviously, what army you're going to play, and nearly everyone said Dwarves. I think everyone either has a Dwarf army already from the old days that they never got rid of, or they maybe always wanted a Dwarf army but never did it. Now they're coming back and they want to do it, but I think it's just because the old Dwarf players are so stubborn. Because all the Dwarves, of course, have that stubborn rule built in, so it's been infused into the players through gaming and painting the models, and
Yes.
just a refusal to rebase, a refusal to sell them, to
Love
keep
it.
them all, waiting for the old world to come back, and then ready to go on the table.
Why do people have dwarves? Says Mickey. They are terrible. Mickey, I don't think Mickey likes. She's a fan of beards.
I think people
Maybe.
didn't like playing against dwarves, particularly in 8th edition. I can't speak to how bad it was
Yeah,
in a competitive setting before that, but in 8th edition, because the win conditions for Warhammer Fantasy were very much kill centric, if a dwarf player just hides in the corner with cannons shooting, and then as soon as you get close, the units are actually pretty tough as well. But if they just cannon off your monsters immediately, and then you walk forward for 3 or 4 turns before you're even in charge range and get shot to bits by Thunderers and Iron Drakes and all the organ guns, then it wasn't
yes.
necessarily the most fun game. And it doesn't seem like the win conditions have changed that drastically. They have changed a little bit how war machines work. I don't think it's quite as guaranteed to just murder monsters in turn 1 anymore,
No.
which is nice. So,
Um,
to make it even less likely that people corner camp and just shoot you to death, I would like to see some kind of scenarios rather than just kill everything to force you to move a little bit during the game.
I mean, they could have some units that are just faster, like Slayers, because they're naked. Maybe they could have more movement,
And the
you know.
problem
And
that did, I think, they tried to make you more aggressive as a dwarf player with the last army book release in 8th edition for dwarves by giving you, I think it was +1 strength on the charge. But
also the Anvil of Doom, because with the Anvil of Doom, you could teleport units around.
all it actually did was that they would stand off and shoot you, and then when you get even closer, then they charge you, and then they kill you because you're diminished by all the shooting.
Yeah.
So I don't think it actually encouraged more aggressive, outward, expansive play from the dwarves. So you usually have to accomplish that with the mission. Just the mission is just kill the enemy and don't get killed. There could still be a problem with shooty armies. That's always been there in the system. Whether that's going to be
Yeah.
down to tournament organisers to come up with win conditions that are different.
I mean, it's hard for me to say. I never actually got to play with my dwarves. I just collected them, but yeah, they always seem like a kind of a boring army to play.
Well,
Just to-
it's the only army I've ever put down on the table, and one of my opponents looked like he'd rather just go home immediately as soon as he saw the army come out. And this was the first tournament I ever went to. Like, he's got no idea of what my play style is. It's just, as soon as he sees a couple of organ guns and cannons, it's just, oh, I don't want to be here.
I remember I had a famous victory against your dwarves with my ogres, because ogres were a great counter because ogres are fast moving, loads of wounds, and they deal a lot of damage, and they give rend, especially the iron ones. You know what they're called.
Is this an Age of
So
Sigmar?
it might be an Age of Sigmar, but you could have all those. I could see that being like a fantasy result as well. Um, because that's the same models. But yeah, ogres could be a good counter to the dwarves. But I mean, wood elves versus dwarves could be a very frustrating game, couldn't it? I don't know.
The dwarves are just sitting back shooting, and the wood elves are just dancing around shooting.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. How do you fix that conundrum for dwarves? Because people just love the aesthetic and everything. But how do you
You
make them
change the
fun
win
to play?
conditions, so just killing stuff isn't enough. If the objective of the game, so for example in Kings of War, all the missions will be something different. Like there's one where whoever's got the most units, like within 12 inches of the center of the table at the end, is the winner. If you're sitting back, you're not going to win. Or it's controlling more table sections than your opponent. It's like divided up into a grid. And then in Age of Sigmar, you've got all kinds of wild missions as well, like objectives that you have to be sitting on at particular times throughout the game. So you don't have to be
Well,
quite as wild as that because the movement isn't as dynamic. So you wouldn't be able to just zoom around all across the table onto objectives. But you can have ways of making armies move.
yeah, I think they'll definitely bring the Anvil of Doom back. That's for sure. Any sculpts, models, dwarven units you'd like to see come back?
Well, the one thing I don't have in my army is Slayers. So if they bring back the Metal Slayers, I would buy some of those immediately.
Yeah.
Or what would be really crazy is if they had like a plastic dwarf Slayer kit which they made and then never released it because they blew up the world. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That'd be great.
So I would buy that if that existed. So Slayers are the number one thing because I just don't own any.
Any kind of dwarf cavalry? That'd be interesting. some model lines have goat cavalry, don't they? Dwarves on
I don't
goats.
think that's really necessary for dwarves. What I would
No.
like to see actually is the old flame cannon.
Yeah.
I really like that model. I didn't like the more modern one, so I never bought that.
No.
But the old classic one with the big barrel, it's kind of a
Yeah.
wooden barrel with the gun barrel sticking out of it. I really like that one. So I'd like to see that come back, that classic. What else?
Yeah. I don't think they'll bring the Goblobber back because it's such a cool.
No.
Because it was a box, wasn't it?
Ooh, what about this would totally destroy eBay in one day if they brought back the Goblin Hewer.
Oh man, that'd be incredible. I wish I'd bought that back in the day. But yeah, I think they would bring that back because it wasn't that old. I
It
don't
was
think.
only available for a short time, I think, wasn't it?
Goblin Hewer. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, and I think most people just ran it as an organ gun because
Yeah,
they just didn't have rules for it after a while.
yeah,
So that was amazing. If you wanted to get one of those on eBay, pay obscene prices.
yeah,
So that would destroy the market. By the way, if anyone's holding on to their old classic miniatures now, you've seen the Marauder Giant is making a comeback. So anything is fair game at this point. So if you're holding on to that old stuff, now might be the time to get rid of it. Because as soon as that pops up on made to order, the eBay prices are going to plummet, aren't they?
I'm sure.
So if you're holding on to
I'm
stuff
sure.
that you really don't want and you were just waiting for the right time to sell it, I would say get rid of it now for the
I
best
think
price.
I mean, but made to order doesn't last forever. You
No,
know,
but
they did
it does flood the market.
they did a made to order of the Goblin King's chariot, and then no, not Goblin King's chariot, Grom the Paunch, I think. Yeah, they did a made to order of that, and that didn't flood the market.
Well, I think
Still,
because they've got the game system to support these units now,
yeah, true.
I
Yeah,
think the
okay.
market will get flooded with them. And then because it's come back once, there's the expectation that maybe at some point again it'll come back into the rotation. So people
Yeah,
won't be willing to pay the obscene eBay prices anymore.
yeah,
So now could be the time to sell. Unless it's a model you like, in which case just paint it and use it because the game's back.
yeah.
That would be my
All right.
advice.
Well, Andy, that's all I've got time for, I think.
I think it is time to wrap this one up.
But I'm
And
definitely up for another one soon.
yes, not only that, we should play a game soon as well.
It's terrific. Yeah,
Maybe a game of Old World even.
I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love that. You'd have to sort of talk me through it, but then what's new?
And also, if we want to learn how to play, then you should check out the square-based. What's it called? Square-based what? Square-based something.
Square-based podcast or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
square.
he's
If you put
he's
in square-based into the YouTube search, I'm sure it'll pop up anyway, and it's got Rob and his
he
cohort.
comes up. If you put in the old world, he comes up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, Rob's a friend of ours. He runs the TSN Arena in Nottingham. It's a great place to go and have a game or a competition. Not
Anything
for me
else?
though, because I lose almost every game.
Well, you don't lose every game. Occasionally you draw because you are playing so slowly that your opponent generously decides, you know what, we're not going to finish turn 2. Let's just call it a draw.
Yeah, I think that's my tactic from now on. I think.
Well, maybe because your mind is already primed from playing previous Warhammer editions. This one, you'll be able to slip back into it easily. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. Right. Well, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Thanks for
Yes,
turning up.
let's bring up the
And
old episode thumbnail there so people can look at our faces reacting to the wonderful 2008 Bretonian Lord sculpt.
wow, look how
And
long my hair was in lockdown.
wild, my hair's just as long as it's ever been right now. Not that you could see it tonight under this glorious hood. But folks, don't forget to like the video if you haven't already for some reason. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, the various social media shenanigans down there. Discord server, Facebook group, Twitter and all that good stuff. You can even check out Remington's channel in case he decides to do a Wood Elf video at some point. Or
Well,
Remington's Pillow Talk Part 3 after a multiple year absence again.
you're going to see loads of Warhammer Fantasy content, that's for sure, because it's come back round again. So
Now,
maybe I should monetize
when
it.
you stepped away to deal with the dog, we did actually spot you have an instrument in the background. So,
Oh, God damn it!
are you lying
No.
to us right now?
Yes, I'm not playing. I've got to go. I'm sorry, but next
Say that
time
it's
I promise.
refusal to play.
I promise next time.
Next time we're going to demand multiple songs and an encore. So yeah, folks, don't forget to do all those things. Don't forget, obviously, if you want to keep this channel as the beacon of hope in the foggy, murky waters of wargaming, then why not pledge all your life savings to the Patreon or the PayPal link down there, which pretty much just sends me to more tournaments. That's all it does. Okay, yes, Rem, you were rumbled. You've got a guitar. You are lying to the people. They don't call him Honest Rem for nothing.
I'm gonna go.
And
take care.
All that remains to be said at this point, folks, is good night out there, whatever you are.